Everybody, how's it going? It's me, Logan, aka Suburban Yinzer. And in this video, I'm thinking about talking about my great-grandfather, Joe Gigliotti, okay? Because in my past videos, I talked about my German ancestors from Southside, the Rebels, the Christians, the Lipperts. But I'm thinking about, in this video, talking about my great-grandfather, Joe Gigliotti, okay? Because he is such a prominent, influential, inspirational person. And no, I never got the chance to meet him, but I am directly related to somebody who knew him for 14 years, and that is my father, named after him. My dad, Joe, was named after his grandfather, Joe. So my dad told me tons of stories about my great-grandfather. He knew him very well. And my great-grandfather told my dad a lot of things that he wasn't going to tell many people, okay, because he trusted my dad. My dad was his grandson. And my dad, like me, is very interested in history, of knowing people's backgrounds, of knowing who people were, where they came from, what made them them, know what I mean? What makes a person a person? Well, my great-grandfather, Joe, taught my dad all this stuff from the 70s to the mid-80s, and told him stories and details and, interesting things. But a lot of life lessons and a lot of morals, values, and principles. But me being a amateur genealogist at that, for the past, I'd say, 13-ish years, I have done extensive research on my great-grandfather. So combining the stories and then combining the records and the information that I've acquired through my research, I've combined them together. And I would like to share this with many Yins, especially if you're from Pittsburgh or you're from Southside. Many Yins might not know who this man is. Many Yins might not. But I'm going to ring some bells, okay? I want to share because I'm very proud of who he was and that he's my great-grandfather. And I'm going to share a little bit about his life, okay? I don't know everything, but I know a lot more than most people. So my great-grandfather was born November 14th, 1899, in a little village in Italy called Pentone, okay? That was in Calabria, Catanzaro, Italia, Italy, okay? My great-grandfather was dirt poor. No shoes, really no money, Roman Catholic, okay? And by 1916, 1917, 1918, he enlisted in the Italian army in World War I, okay? And he was 17 to 18 years old during World War I. And as a soldier, he took many lives and was wounded many times, multiple wounds, gunshots, stabs, gas. And he was a very skilled soldier. Let's just keep it at that, okay? My great-grandfather saw some stuff, okay? And my dad told me a lot of these things. And it's amazing to know that a little 5'4" guy, 5'4", 100 pounds basically, during World War I, was so destructive and so skilled with a bayonet, a shovel, a club, anything hand to hand. This man was, a warrior, okay? And so after World War I, after the warfare, the taking of the lives, the destruction, the craziness of war, he goes to the coast of Italy and isolates himself for a year. This is approximately 1919, okay? So he's going on 20 years old. And so he finally comes back to Pentone after decompressing emotionally and mentally and psychologically from what he just witnessed. And so during 1921, the fascists started rising up. Benito Mussolini, fascism and communism was starting to spread around Europe. Okay, National Socialism with the Germans, Italian fascism or National Fascism or National Socialism with the Italians, and then communism with the Russians and the Soviets. So there was huge social and political things going on in Europe, especially in Italy, during my great-grandfather's time while living in Italy. So while he was 20 years old going on 21, Benito Mussolini won the election, okay? Can we say it's fair? I don't know. But my great-grandfather hated Benito Mussolini. He hated the fascists. He hated socialism. He hated communism. My great-grandfather was all about King Emmanuel. He was about capitalism, the monarchy. He was about freedom and liberty. He wasn't about socialism and communism. He told my dad this multiple times, okay? So my great-grandfather was told by his mother, Margaret in English. She was scared because she knew that he was an enemy of the fascists. He was an enemy of the socialists, and he was going to be target number one. All the World War I veterans that stood against Benito Mussolini and the fascists in Italy, they were going to be first on the chopping block. They were done, okay? So rather than losing her son to a civil war, which broke out in Italy in 1922, okay, the resistance, 21 and 22, she told her 21-year-old son, my great-grandfather Joe, she said, Peppino, that was his nickname, you got to go to Pittsburgh. You got to go. You got to go live with the Morantes. If you didn't know the Morantes, those are distant cousins from Pentone. And she said, you got to go. So this 21-year-old, with hardly any money, knew a little bit of English, but mostly was fluent in Italian, of course. He goes to America to live with his distant cousins and his father, Salvatore. His father was here multiple times throughout the early 1900s. But this man got on a boat, a young man, 21 years old. And he basically said goodbye to Italy, not knowing if he would ever see Italy ever again. And he was chased out by the fascists. He was chased out by the National Socialists, okay? Basically banished from his land. Because he was afraid, and his mother was afraid that he was going to get either conscripted, which he wasn't, but he was going to fight to the end. And she didn't want that, so he left. He comes to Ellis Island, New York City on November 16th, 1921. Turned 22 on the boat coming across the Atlantic Ocean. Goes to Ellis Island, and he's processed legally. Okay, this is where I'm going to get a little political. But it's not fair that he had to go through all this rigorous processing, okay? And during this time in 1921, the federal government is putting huge restrictions on Eastern European and Southern European ethnicities, meaning that they're saying there's quotas saying, well, we have to take so much Polish and so much Slovakian and so much Italian, especially Italian. The Italians were looked down upon. They were like, back in the early 1900s, Italians were like lower than low, okay? They were bad. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying what the WASPs, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, what the big WASP blue bloods thought in the federal government. They were like, we can't let any of these, Italianos come in here, so we gotta smash them down and, keep it low, keep the quota low. So my great-grandfather had to jump through all those hurdles and loops and hoops to basically get into this country, invited into this country. He had to do everything he could to prove that he was worthy to come into this country, which is not a bad thing. Okay, it's not a bad thing because he's an alien. He's a foreigner. Okay, and I understand that. I understand the processes, but also they wanted to see if he was safe, if he wasn't an anarchist, if he wasn't a communist, if he wasn't a socialist, if he wasn't threatening the country in any way. To me, that's legit. That's why you do legal immigration. And he agreed with it. He told my dad, it makes sense. It's legitimate. It's necessary. Are you going to open your front door to your house to some stranger? Oh, come on in. You don't know who they are. You don't know what diseases they have. You don't know what their intentions are. So why would you let them in your house? Okay? Same thing with your country. Your country is your house. Okay? It is your safe space, safe zone. Are you going to let strangers in your safe zone? I don't think so. But he was invited. He was welcomed into this country. Okay? So while living in Oakland and working as a shoemaker, he meets his future father-in-law, Giuseppe Aria. Okay, Joe Aria. Works with him in Oakland. My great-grandfather during the 20s and the 30s is petitioning the federal government for naturalization, meaning the legal steps and the legal processes to become an American. So 1925 is when he first declares that he wants to become a U.S. citizen. But when he was 26 or 25 going on 26, the federal government said, Joe, sorry, you don't meet the requirements. You haven't been here long enough, okay? But we're going to keep you on the records. We're going to keep you on the books. So as you can see, this Roman Catholic, okay, Italian World War I veteran from Italy is following the necessary steps, the necessary processes to become an American citizen legally. And not only that, he's learning English. He's learning the customs. He's learning the culture. He's learning how to assimilate and to become a good American citizen. He's in the process of working his way up into the title of American citizen, okay? That is his end goal. But while he's working his way up, he's arranged to marry Joe Aria's daughter, my great-grandmother, Mary Aria, okay? She lives in Southside. My great-grandfather lives in Oakland, okay? The Arias live in Southside, so my great-grandfather travels to Southside to visit his fiancée until, boom, they get married in 1928. When they get married in 1928, my great-grandfather follows the American dream, okay? What does he do? He settles in the South Side. He settles in his wife's and in-laws' homeland, okay? The South Side of Pittsburgh. He is granted the storefront on the corner of 27th and Jane, which is currently 2701 Jane Street, okay? That is across the street from Rebel's Bar, okay? You know Rebel's, the couple videos back? This is going to get really complex, so bear with me. My great-grandfather's daughter, Rose, my grandmother, and my great-grandfather's son-in-law, my grandfather, Mooch Joyce, they get married. Mooch's mother is a Rebel. Her family has the bar on 48 to 50 South 27th Street, across the street from 2701 Jane Street. I'm going to put it up on the screen so many yins know what I'm talking about, because you're going to be like, what? But listen, bear with me. The reason why he's being able to acquire this property is because he is being welcomed with open arms with the Southside neighborhood, especially the Rebels and the Roaches. If yins know, Rebels, Roaches, those families, those prominent families in Southside, there's German families that I'm related to, my great-grandmother and her family, they own the properties, like I said, in Southside. See, this is where the neighborhood becomes the neighborhood, because you have to know people and earn people's trust in order to assimilate and to get lucky. You know what I mean? And this outsider, my great-grandfather, marries a Southsider, Mary Aria Gigliotti, from the neighborhood. So she knows people, because the Arias and the Rebels are neighbors and friends since the 20s. So that is why my great-grandfather is opening his own storefront, his own shoe store on 2701 Jane Street. I apologize for the complexity. For me, it's easy. For many yins, are going to be like, what? Bear with me. But regardless, he opens his own shoe store on 2701 Jane Street in Southside, okay? During the 20s and the 30s, that is when he starts to assimilate into the Southside neighborhood and the culture. He starts to earn his way up in society, especially around the neighborhood, making and fixing shoes for the locals, the kids, and the families. But during the Great Depression, many of these children don't have shoes, or their shoes are worn out, and their families don't have the money and the income to be able to fix these shoes and pay my great-grandfather to repair them. So what does my great-grandfather do? He says, don't worry about it. Pay me when you get the money. I don't want these kids to have no shoes and ripped, broken shoes. This was a great man with great morals and values and principles, okay? He didn't believe, because he had no shoes as a kid in Italy, but he didn't feel that any American child should go shoeless or have broken or worn out shoes at all. So he fixed the kids' shoes, not for free, but probably like a credit system during the Depression. So these neighbors in the neighborhood are already earning the trust. They're already creating that bond and that shared formalities with my great-grandfather. A foreign immigrant from Italy is being assimilated and invited into the neighborhood, if you know what I mean, in the culture. So going into the 1940s, my great-grandfather is on his track to becoming an American citizen. In 1939, he petitions again for citizenship, having to know many sponsors. Okay, so to be able to become an American citizen, especially back then and today, you have to be able to know people. People have to be able to vouch for you. You can't just say, well, I want to become a citizen now. Who do you know? Who's going to vouch for you? Well, my great-grandfather had many volunteers. He had many people that are going to be like, yo, Joe, I'll vouch. They had to be citizens to vouch for him. They couldn't just be Joe Schmoes from anywhere in the world. They had to be American citizens. One of those citizens was named Helen Roach. Okay, like I said, the Roaches, that's my great aunt, Aunt Helen Roach. Maiden name Rebel. How do you think she got to know him, if you know what I mean? She vouches. She tells the federal government this is a good dude. This dude's legit. Okay? I know him. We all know him. He's a great guy. And they're like, okay, we'll keep him on the books. We'll keep him on the books. No big deal. Until 1941. What happens in 1941? December 7th to be exact. Pearl Harbor. We are at war with Germany, Italy, and Japan. So my great-grandfather, being an Italian immigrant, guess what, though? He is now an alien on the foreign watch list. Many Indians didn't know this. So my great-grandfather from Italy and many other people from Japan and Germany were being watched. Italy, Japan, German immigrants. Okay, the Italians, the Germans, the Japanese, they're all being watched and surveillanced by the federal government at all times. My great-grandfather's one of them. My great-grandfather has to now jump through more hoops and loops and earn the federal government's trust even more during wartime as an Italian immigrant living in Southside. Well, guess what happens? Out of luck, persistence, and following the laws and following the rules, he is now granted March 30th, 1944. I remember the date because it was a special date. 45 years old. My great-grandfather has earned his right as an American citizen. He swears an oath to the Constitution of the United States of America, and boom, he is an American citizen who earned his right legally. So, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. He retires by the 60s after making shoes for multiple decades for the people of Southside, helping the neighbors, helping the neighborhood. And also, not only that, but also helping the World War II veterans and the Korean veterans that are coming home that have PTSD. Since he's a World War I veteran, he's able to help rehabilitate mentally, emotionally, and psychologically these veterans coming home. These boys who he just made shoes for in the Depression when they were kids. He is now counseling them and helping them mentally and emotionally through PTSD therapy. It's fantastic. So by the time the 80s come, he's already had to help World War II veterans, Korean veterans, and Vietnam veterans. He has had so much experience, so much support from all of these people, not only supporting them, but them supporting him. It's a give and take. And that is how the South Side was. It was the neighborhood. Everybody helped each other. He helped them with their shoes. He helped them with the PTSD. And now they're giving back to him. Okay? It's a give and take. And that's what neighbors do. It's a community. It's almost like a big family. So my great-grandfather, at the end of the day, died December 30th, 1984 in his house on Sarah Street in Southside. Okay? Peacefully at 85 years old. After battling cancer, he dies at 85 years old. Now, what can I say about his life in conclusion? Well, this is what I got to say about it. That man followed the rules to the T. He not only came here legally, he not only followed the rules, but he earned his right as an American citizen to come to this country legally. And, lo and behold, he was a Republican on top of it, who supported Ronald Reagan in the 1980 election. Because he knew that capitalism was the key. Free markets, liberty, and freedom. And he knew that any form of socialism, communism, or fascism was a virus inside this country. And he was all about legal immigration. He was a conservative. And he was about earning your right as an American citizen to serve and protect your country from any foreign threat. And he was a foreigner from Italy. But at the end of the day, he died an American. That is how my great-grandfather should always be remembered. He was an American. And he served not only his community and his city, but also his country honorably. I am very proud to share his genetics and to share his story with many Yins. But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching this video. I hope you really enjoyed it. Peace.